Anyway, it's good to see you.
Good to see you too. And I understand that this is your very first Instagram Live.
Yeah, it is. I've done a couple of Zooms. Obviously, my kids are you know, obviously they're experts now in doing all of these Zoom meetings and stuff like that because of online school. They've had to do it through their classes and their classmates and their friends. But this is the first Instagram Live for me.
So how have you adapted to, but how au fait are you with technology? Do you like it, or do you rather push it to one side?
I'm actually not bad. I mean, I think that you know, I mean, you just kind of go with the times and stuff, and obviously you're teaching your kids some things, and obviously they're teaching you some things. But I mean, it's such a tech age now in this world, so you know, just so many different ways of communicating, keeping up to date on different people, on different events. You know, obviously, especially now during this pandemic. So I think I'm doing okay. You know, all things considered, not bad for you know, for a retired professional tennis player.
The kids, do they all embrace social media? Do you allow them to? Because there can be so many weirdos out there as well on social media.
Yeah, they don't do anything with social media right now. They may do some things with, you know, with texts. You know, they may do like a little, you know, phone video chat or something like that, but no social media at this point. My kids are still pretty young. My oldest is 9, my second daughter is 7, and my son's gonna turn 5 next month. So hopefully they don't have to get into that social media aspect of it just yet. But you know, but I do know there are a lot of other friends that I know that you know, some of their kids, they actually have their own social media accounts for, you know, different sports that they play and you know, and what have you. But I'm sure that the parents are the ones that are doing most of the posting on that.
So who's the stricter parent, you or your wife Amber?
Who do you think?
I think maybe Amber.
Amber's probably a little more strict. I'm definitely more of the goofball. I probably do a few more funny things to make them laugh. But Amber is you know, certainly very disciplined, unbelievably loving and caring. So we make a good combination, and obviously it was interesting because so we have 2 girls. Our 2 oldest are girls, and my youngest is a boy. And so when we had the 2 girls, you know, she would often tell me, she'd be like, "Oh, you know, Michael, you're so soft with the girls and stuff." And I'm like, "Well, I can't really help it, you know. You know, they come to me and you know, they give me hugs, they give me kisses. It's hard for me, you know, not to be soft with my daughters." And so, and then when we had our son, it was interesting because I would just see Amber just melt
Yeah.
during this whole process of having, you know, having our son and having a little boy, and now I go to her and I'm like, so now who's the softie? Who's the one that's like melting and you know, now what it feels like. So
But isn't it always the case where the girls will gravitate to a dad and the boys will gravitate to a mom?
yeah, and I think obviously in different aspects. I think that you know, if Michael wants to go out and he wants to ride bikes or he wants to go, you know, hit some tennis balls or something, most of the time he'll ask me. But certain aspects, you know, you just tend to ask mom on certain things, and then you'll tend to ask dad on different things.
So I understand it's Melly who likes the golf. Are any of the kids have they got a tendency to pick up tennis rackets?
Yeah, so my oldest Lonnie, she does play tennis. So she's playing playing a little bit of like 10 and under, green dot. Miley is our golfer. So she'll play like you know, some 7 under tournaments and stuff like that. She loves it. She loves to go out there and hit the ball and play little games, chipping games, putting games. Strangely enough, she doesn't really like tennis. Obviously, we've
Really?
introduced tennis to her. She goes, "Oh, I like golf because I don't have to run so much." um, and Micah, he plays a little bit of tennis, a little bit of golf, and I figured at this point he likes to swat at things. So
Right.
whether it's golf or tennis, we'll see what happens in all, as time goes on. Obviously, we're a very sports-oriented family. Amber was a great tennis player in her junior and college days, and it's just great to be able to get outside and be very active.
How much, Michael, do they know? I know they're still very young, but how much do they know about what your career, what you achieved? How much have you told them, and that they actually understand?
I would say I don't know if the two younger ones understand a whole lot. I think my oldest probably understands a fair amount, and I think part of that has to do with her traveling quite a bit with us as a family, being on tour, with Kay, being at the slams. Obviously, I'm talking to a lot of different people about certainly what's going on with the tour, certainly what's going on with Kay, but then also people that come up to me and asking me about, my career, and if I'm at the French, they'll ask me about the French Open. So, I think she understands a lot more about, what I've accomplished a little bit in my career. And then obviously it's a little bit fun now too, because, I do still play some champion tour events.
Right.
I just played Mac, a couple of months ago at Riviera. So, she understands all of that, and it's nice that, that they're old enough to understand. But I don't know about the two youngest ones. Sometimes they'll be on, Alexa, and they'll be like, "Alexa, who's Michael Chang?" And they'll give me a good description. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Dad, Alexa knows who you are," So
That's priceless. That's too funny. Now, I always love to ask tennis champions where they keep their trophies. Where is the 1989 Roland Garros trophy?
French Open is in our office. So it doesn't take up a lot of space.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know this, but the Coupe des Mousquetaires for the men's champion is pretty good size. Obviously you're hoisting it up, and but the trophy that you actually get is literally only, I want to say, maybe 9 inches tall. It's not very big at all. And it was funny because when I remember after the trophy presentation and after talking, giving the speech, I was walking down the stairs to go back on the court, and this guy comes up to me. He goes, Monsieur Chang," and I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "I need that trophy," and I said, "You need this trophy, this one that I just was showing," and I just, yes, I need to give you that. I need to take that one from you." And I said, "Oh, I don't get to keep this one?" He goes, No, you get this one." So he gave me the smaller one, and I was like, I kind of want the big one.
Yes. Yes.
So
It's like this the story with Roger Federer. I mean, the Wimbledon, the Challenge Cup trophy is in a similar situation. The replicas are smaller. So the
yeah.
early ones that he won were much smaller than the present ones, the replicas. So he actually had the whole set the same size made up.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now let's talk about probably the most talked about match of your career. Um, that fourth round match against Ivan Lendl at Roland Garros in 1989. How vivid are the memories of that? And then continuing on.
Gosh, I mean, it happened so many years ago, but strangely enough, it's very vivid in my mind. Some some particular things during those couple of weeks, and even prior, the week before training was still very vivid. A lot of things I can recall. How I felt when it was going through my mind at the time, circumstances. It was very kind of unique situation. We had played, I think, on the day after the actual crackdown happened in Tiananmen. And so, obviously we're glued to the television set watching the events unfold the night before. And obviously going into that match with Yvonne, I actually had a little bit of confidence in that match. I actually had played Yvonne in an exhibition tournament in Atlanta, but it was on green clay. It wasn't on red clay. And actually beat him 7-5 in the third. So this was maybe, I want to say, a month or month and a half prior to us playing at the French Open. Obviously, different circumstances. The clay is different. 3 out of 5 sets instead of 2 out of 3. But it just gave me a little bit of confidence, saying, hey, I did get a chance to actually beat him in a regular match. So maybe I have somewhat of a shot here, although it might be tough. So. Yvonne being 3-time champion, number 1 player in the world, I actually played first 2 sets. Actually, I played very, very well. Yvonne was just a little bit better than I was. Was able to get a break in the third set, and then up another break in the fourth set, and then ended up winning that set. But at the end of that set is when I really started to feel the cramps and the physical difficulties that I ended up running into in the 5th set.
So the famous underarm serve that you won that point, it allowed you to get up 5-3 in the final set. And then I think from memory, Yvonne double faulted on match point, didn't he?
Yeah. So that particular point was actually, I think, it was almost a momentum changer. Strangely enough, I actually had more difficulty holding my serve than actually breaking him, which is normally the other way around. But part of it also is like I couldn't really serve during the entire 5th set. My first serve, I kid you not, my first serve was going about 70 miles per hour. I was just rolling my first serve in, as I was afraid that if I had gone up and used my legs, I would cramp, because every time I run hard or stop really hard, my legs would cramp. I was in the situation where I was up 4-3. I was down 15-30, and it just crossed my mind, like, I got to do something different here, because, I'm only going to break him so many times. And, I need to try something different. I'm about to lose my serve here again. So 15-30, people say, well, did you think about, did you think about hitting an underhand serve? Did you train this shot? Did you practice this shot? I said, no, I don't practice this shot. I think sometimes players will hit that shot just out of fun, just to kind of mess around, but certainly did not train it. And I probably thought about it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds before I hit it. And I was just like, yep, I got to do something different. I'm gonna hit an underhand serve here. And that's what I did. Obviously the ball spun, quite severely to Yvonne's left. He kind of got squeezed a little bit. He was quite, pretty far in the court. He had to come in. And I ended up hitting a passing shot back up behind him that, lo and behold, clipped off the top of the net, and then clipped off the top of his racket. So, which obviously, annoyed him, in that whole circumstances. But the crowd just went absolutely nuts, It's very unexpected. I don't think the French have ever seen something like that. Obviously, right. I think they started to understand, the circumstances. I think in the beginning, when I actually started to hit lobs and stuff like that, they started to kind of like wonder, like, started to boo a little bit, like, hey, what is this? Because I don't know if you remember, but in the days before, they didn't really like the long matches where guys were just hitting deep and deep and deep.
Right.
So I think they were thinking maybe that this was one of those things that I was trying to do. But but by the time 4-3 came around, they understood that I was having physical issues. So they didn't boo anymore. They understood I was really just trying to get through that match. And after I won that point with the underhand serve, crowd was going nuts. Ivan was obviously going back to the deuce side to return the next serve for 30 all, and you can see him. He's going like this, and he realizes that it's obviously not just a physical battle, but maybe even more difficulty because it's more difficult because it's a mental battle now.
Yeah.
And you cannot train to play somebody who's injured or hurt. You can say, well, I'm just going to play it like normal, but it's tough to get that out of your mind. I've been in similar situations, and sometimes you think I'm just going to try to play normal, but it's difficult to do that.
Yeah, look, true. I mean, I was there. I remember it so well, and I remember Ivan muttering, "Good one, Michael."
Yeah. So, and that was really, I think, changed the momentum of that fifth set. I ended up hitting an unbelievable backhand up the line, ended up winning that game, and then in the last game, I hit another unbelievable backhand up the line, and I was just really kind of, if I had I would go for my shots really on two occasions. One was if I just had some kind of middle court ball that was just sitting there and I had a chance to crack it, I would just go and just crack it. The other one is if I was so far off the court that I was just like, basically, look, if I get this ball back, I'm dead anyways, because there's no way I'm going to be able to cover the other side. So I had a couple of these backhands where I was pulled far enough out on the backhand side, and I just went for it up the line, and lo and behold, both of them went in for winners. So come 15-40, Ivan misses the first serve. I move up to probably 3-4 feet of the service box, and Ivan looks up. People are starting to talk, starting to murmur, starting to make a lot of noise because they're kind of like, hey, oh my gosh, what's Michael doing? He's 17-year-old's going to return the second serve so close to the service line. And in my mind, I was thinking, this is actually something that I did in the juniors because, and you remember, I'm not that far off removed from the juniors. I'm still 17 years old. I was playing junior tennis, a year and a half earlier. And, often when juniors would sometimes get nervous, I would move up. And sometimes they would get nervous and they would just basically just pop their second serve in without much on it because they just didn't want to miss it. And then I would go in and I would clock the return for a winner. So I was kind of thinking, okay, I got 15-40 now. I've got 2 match points. I'm going to move in the same way. And if he hits a double fault, great. But if he hits a soft second serve, I'm going to give it a rip. I'm going to go and go for it. If I make it, great. Match is done. If I miss it, I've got one more match point. So that was really kind of my mentality in doing that. And I knew that, Ivan had to have been nervous. He ended up looking up to Richard Ings and saying, hey, are you going to give me a first serve? And Richard was like, why am I giving you a first serve? He said, well, because the crowd's being so loud. He said, why don't I give you a first serve because of that? That's not a good enough reason. So he was like, oh, okay, for sure. Of course you're not going to give me a first serve. And then he looks down, he's kind of like shaking his head. And then he goes and he serves the second serve and it clips off the tape and it goes long. So, and by that time, just a flood of emotions just overcame me. It was difficult to hold back, the tears. But, like I've often told people, obviously that match is a match I should not have won. I should not have won the match against Edberg. But I've always felt that, with the situation in Tiananmen, me being of Chinese descent, I've always felt that, it was God's purpose for me to win that tournament, to put a smile upon Chinese people's faces around the world when it was such a down time for Chinese people, to see all of those events unfold and so many Chinese people's lives lost.
Yeah, for sure. I was just doing some research on that whole draw that you played in Paris that year. Eduardo Masso, first round, 4 sets. Pete Sampras, second round,
Yeah.
6-1, 6-1, 6-1.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. And then
Pete and I, we
Francisco
actually
Roy.
trained for the French together that year.
Sorry.
Pete and I, we actually trained together with Jose
Yes.
that year and the year prior, actually, for that French Open. And interesting enough, they actually put us on center court.
Yep.
So I was like, wow, you're going to put two young Americans on center court. It's pretty amazing. And Pete was nervous. You know, we had been practicing. He knew my game. I knew his game. He was nervous in that match, and it was quick. It was like an hour and 31 minutes, and he just never got comfortable on that court. So yeah.
Yeah, I also remember you won the men's singles. Arantxa Sanchez Vicario won the women's singles that year, and the next day, the day after the French Open, there was, I think it was in L'Equipe, maybe, I can't remember this, but there was a huge promotion because you both had the same clothing company,
Yeah.
and the promo was, some teenagers come to Paris to learn history, others come to make history.
Yeah.
I thought that was priceless.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very creative ad. And obviously, you know, Arantxa was not expected to win that final against Steffi Graf. And I think she wanted, I want to say maybe 8-6, I think, in the third. It was an incredible match that she won. I watched it the day before. And it's funny because I will still see Arantxa every now and then. Most of the time I'll see her at the French because she's playing the Legends event as well.
Right.
They're playing the Legends event as well as coaching Kay. And we'll always come up and say hello to each other. And we may not talk about the French Open, but we always know in the back of our heads that you know, that we share that same title, the same age and same year. It was very special.
What drove you as a player? Because physically you're not a big guy. You could be dominated. How did you not get down when you played guys like that? So what pushed you? What was it? The whole mental side of the way you played?
I think it was a few different things. I think part of it is that when you're a kid and you're learning something and you have a passion for it, it's very easy to dream. So when I was in Minnesota, when I started playing tennis, I would often be in the basement hitting a sponge tennis ball, a kind of a foam sponge tennis ball against the wall downstairs. I would draw like a little line that was about the height of a net, and I would dream of playing John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, Yvonne Lendl, Bjorn Borg, all these great champions in all of the slams. And obviously at that point, I would never have imagined that I would actually have the opportunity to play three of those four guys. Had Bjorn not retired so early, I might have got a chance to play him. But you have dreams. And I think as a dream, as a kid, you think about those dreams and you wonder, hey, you know, one of these days will that dream come true? And you develop a passion for something and you work hard at it and you have fun at it. You know, you go and you watch a Wimbledon final and it stirs you to go out and want to play tennis. Yeah, I mean, it's just so exciting for me. You know, as far as the mental side, I have to tell you that, you know, of everybody in our family, by far, without question, the toughest person mentally is my mom.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I just knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. My mom is a fighter. She is a competitor. She will never give up. And without question, I learned so much of that from her. My dad on the other side is a great athlete. He played a lot of different sports. Certainly I remember him playing obviously tennis, basketball. So he's very, very athletic. So I'm thankful that I got some great genes in that. And I think at the flip side also, you know, when you're small, and I'm always playing against bigger players. Obviously my brother's 3 years older than me. So for
Right.
me to play against bigger, taller, stronger players is not new. And I learned about a very young age that I cannot be afraid to play bigger, older, stronger players. And the only way that I can go about doing that is by going out there and not being afraid, and going out there and fighting them on a lot of things. Fighting on the tennis court, sometimes they try to push you around on the court. You just don't allow that to happen. And I think that going out there and playing with your heart, and going out there playing as a fighter, not ever wanting to give up, is a strength that that God gave me, and certainly would help me tremendously throughout my career. Because if I did not have that aspect of my tennis game, there's no way, no matter how talented I was, would I ever be able to accomplish what I've accomplished.
Right. Why, fast forward, why does the association, as head coach, work with you and Kei Nishikori?
Well, I think it's been actually a great relationship. I think what makes this work is that I'm very detailed,
Yep.
very specific on how I go about playing my matches, how I go about strategizing my matches. I realize that I'm never going to be the biggest guy. I'm never going to be, this guy that can just blow you off the court with a huge serve, with a huge forehand. I've known that for a very, very long time. But that being said, being a little bit smaller, and being a little faster around the court, for me to go and figure out how to win a match, it has to be strategic. It has to pit my strengths against somebody else's weaknesses. And I think that for me as a tennis player, if something's not working, I learn to try to find a different way. I will not stick with the same game plan if I'm losing a match. I write down a lot of notes on different players, different tendencies, and that's really what I've done with Kay. I've taken kind of, obviously my experiences in being a top player on tour. That's something that I can certainly share with him, because not every coach has that ability to be able to do that. If they're in the quarters or the semis or a finals of a Grand Slam, most coaches are not going to be able to tell their player, this is what it's like to be in that situation.
Right.
So
Exactly.
you have that experience of being able to share with your player what they're going through. The flip side is that I think that, in K, our styles are similar in certain aspects, but they're different. But they're not so drastic where it would be difficult for me to help him out. Like, he's not a pure serve and volleyer, chip and charge player that I'm trying to train. I think a situation like that, go to somebody like John McEnroe, who's an
Yes.
expert in that. But Kay is somebody who is fast around the court, can use his speed for offensive purposes, for defensive purposes, and has got solid, great off the ground, good all court game. And so I can utilize, different aspects of my game, and just try to help him to become a better offensive player. And then at the same time, use my experience in defending to also try to help him to become a better defensive player, so that he can really go and play both aspects, no matter who he plays. If he's forced to play defensive in a point, or he's forced to play, or he wants to play offensive, for him to make that transition, I think, is a lot easier now than when he was, kind of at that 15 ranking, where he was, kind of struggling to break into the top 10.
Right. I just noticed a question that came up from some of our followers watching this, and wanting to know, when are you and Kay going to do another team song video?
That's been a while. I don't know. That was kind of a fun project that we did. I think at the time there were a few tennis teams that were doing it. I don't know. I've done some a couple of TikTok kind of videos,
Have you?
but within the small confines of our very close group of friends that I made them sworn never
So we're
to
not going to
leak
see
out
those then.
into social media. But yeah, I mean, it's I think all these different kinds of things are always fun, and certainly when you're talking about coaches and players and a team working together, it's never always just on court. Obviously, it's off court. It's getting along, and certainly we've always gotten along very well. At that time it was with Dante Bottini. Obviously, Ollie's still his agent. The trainers have been great. Robbie's been great. Haru's been great. And now, Max, obviously, Mirny is working with Kay. So, the dynamic in which we've had as a team before and now has always been very, very positive. And I think that also helps to, encourage Kay and also helps him to go out and play his great,
Yeah.
helps him to play his best tennis.
We talk about this golden era of tennis at the moment with Roger, Novak, Rafa, etc. But people tend to maybe forget about the era that you played in and what a purple patch and what a golden era that was with you, Andre, Pete,
Yeah.
Jim, Courier, Todd Martin in there as well. Who was the toughest for you to play, and who did you enjoy playing the most?
It's interesting. I think it almost kind of went in phases. Jim and I were always very close.
Yeah.
I want to say we maybe played 34 times or something, and we've split like 12 on tour. We had a couple times in juniors where we kind of went back and forth. I actually beat him in the finals of Kalamazoo. In the 18s, that gave me the wild card into the Open. Andre was always difficult for me to play. I never beat him in the juniors. I didn't beat him till we got to professional. But he's got a stronger record against me than I do against him. Just similar styles. He had a little bit more firepower. There was a couple of times in '96 I actually had two huge wins over him. One was at the Australian Open semis. The other one was in the semis of the U.S. Open, and actually Andre won the Olympics that year in Atlanta. So those were two huge matches. Pete was almost through a phase. Very, very early on when we played, we would kind of go back and forth a little bit. And Pete and I, we started playing when we were both 8 years old. I think the first time we played it was in Poway when we were like 8 years old. Why I remember that, I don't know. And then in the juniors, I was in the latter part of the juniors, I beat him a little bit more. And that kind of went into the early part of our professional career. I want to say I beat him maybe the first 4 or 5 times we played professionally. And then he goes and he wins the U.S. Open in 1990. And obviously I still had the same confidence going and playing him after he won the U.S. Open. But obviously his confidence was a lot different. I went in matches thinking, oh, I'm just playing Pete. I'm going to keep playing him the way I'm going to play him. And I've beaten him now the last, 4 or 5 times, and I've beaten him very convincingly. I know his game. I know where believe it or not, I knew where he was going to serve. But that U.S. Open did something to him.
Yes, it did.
And he became a different player, a different mentality, a different confidence, a different attitude. And after he won the U.S. Open, I want to say I lost to him maybe the next 4 or 5 times. I had a tough time just tracking his serve. He worked on a lot of the other different combinations of spin and placement on his serve. And then the last 4 times we've played in our career, I think we've split. So I think without question, I think in looking back, Andre was probably the most difficult out of that generation for me to play. But probably the one match that probably hurt the most was probably against Pete, and that was in the finals of the '96 U.S. Open. Because had I won that, I would have been obviously U.S. Open champion.
Yeah.
but I also would have been number one in the world. And I don't know if you recall in the either round of 16 or quarters that year, had Pete lost to Alex Correia,
Hmm.
where he was throwing up and actually had saved a
Exactly.
match point, I also would have been number one. And I
Yeah.
remember watching this match point, and Pete had come in, Alex had hit a good passing shot, Pete kind of stabbed at a volley, and it was short on the deuce court service box, and Alex was coming in. He had all the time in the world, and I remember watching, and I was like, "This is it. He's got all the time in the world." And he gets up there, and Pete at the last second guesses cross court. Correia hits the pass cross court. Pete sticks his racket out, and it dribbles over the net for a winner. And
Yes.
most of the time I would be cheering for my American compatriot, but I have
Yes.
to say, after that point, I was like, oh.
You never want to talk to Alex again.
So, and then the drama just unfolded because he was throwing up, and
Yeah.
they played the breaker in the fifth. So had I beat Pete in the finals of the U.S. Open, or had Alex won that unbelievable 5-set match, I would have been number one in the world. But I think I am literally probably the only player that has probably come that close to being number one in the world and didn't quite achieve it. So c'est la vie, but but the ride's been incredible, and certainly to be a part of this generation, having played against so many great champions of of different generations, McEnroe, Connors, Lendl, and then Edberg and Becker, and then even to have the opportunity to play against the generation after us, which is Federer, Hewitt, Safin, missed Rafa and Novak by just a little bit, but playing against so many champions was incredible.
We've got a few minutes left, Michael. What's who gives you a thrill to watch now? We were talking at length about the underarm serve, and then Nick Kyrgios goes and does it and gets so roundly criticized for it. And people think, oh, he was the first one to do it. Little do they remember what you did. But of the current crop and the ones that are coming through, who do you like to watch?
I have to say, I mean, obviously I'm there working with Kay.
Yeah.
So when I see him in a match that has just unbelievable elements of intensity, atmosphere, to watch his matches are really, really incredible. I can just remember his match that he played with, Wawrinka and Novak in the year that he got to the finals of the U.S. Open, when he played, Carreño Busta in the Australian Open, being down 2 sets and then winning the breaker in the fashion that he did. I mean, it's just, and maybe obviously there's a lot more, ties there because you're there working hard with him. So that's really, really a lot of fun to be a part of. I like so many, other, tennis fans, enjoy watching the best players in the world, Rafa, Novak, Roger, going head to head. They may not even have hit a single shot yet, but the atmosphere is so electric.
Yes.
So, and I'm spoiled because I have the opportunity to, to witness firsthand, what these matches are like. I think I've always encouraged people. I said, to watch tennis, on TV is phenomenal. To watch it in person is extraordinary. I mean, is even more so. It's been a lot of fun. You watch these great champions, these great matches, in huge occasions, and it's hard not to be excited for them, and obviously you think, you're to yourself, wow, it was so great to have had the opportunity to be in their shoes and to play on those center courts in such big matches. You just appreciate the sport as a player. You appreciate the sport as a fan. You appreciate the sport as a coach. You appreciate the sport as a spectator. And now I have the joy of appreciating the sport as a coach and father of my daughter. So, that's a whole nother element, and to see her having fun is certainly a joy to my heart.
Just last couple. The world is in turmoil at the moment with what is going on. The U.S. Open at this point has had the permission to go ahead, but to be playing the event without spectators.
Yeah.
What do you think that's going to be like? I mean, no doubt you've never had that sort of an experience, but I mean, that's sort of it's going to be, I guess, frustrating, disappointing, unknown. It's an unknown quantity.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said that you can have, two great players play an unbelievable match. If the crowd is not there, the atmosphere is not there. The drama is missing a little bit, because, with the crowd, just the excitement, the oohs, the ahs, the crowd's into it as much as the players. It's going to be an adjustment for sure. Obviously, I understand the reasons for wanting to have it, this way, and in consideration for safety for everybody, at these tournaments and at these events. I do think that, the fans at home, people that are watching on TV, will still be yelling, they'll still be screaming. It's just that the players aren't going to get a chance to be able to hear that, and it's going to be different. It's going to be probably a little bit of an adjusting period for the players to go out and play that kind of atmosphere. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how players are necessarily going to be able to handle it. I think it will probably, affect, I want to say, maybe home court players probably more. If you've got American players playing in the U.S. Open, there is an advantage to American players playing in New York. No question. There's an advantage for French players playing in Paris. There's no question. And now all of a sudden, that's no longer there. And, hopefully this is, will only be for a short period of time, as is my hope, as is the hope for everybody. Because, the tennis players, make for great matches, but the fans are the ones that bring the atmosphere and the excitement. And, if given a choice, of course, you'd always want the fans there, no matter how rowdy they are, no matter just to have them there, because they love and appreciate the sport. So hopefully, hopefully this will only be for a short period of time.
Yeah, and there's iconic night sessions at the U.S. Open are going to be so different, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Michael, what would you advise a young player wanting to come through, wanting to make a bit of a breakthrough? What would be the best advice you could give any young player?
I think first and foremost, maybe to the player and maybe to the parents, is, I would say, develop a passion.
Yes.
It could be tennis. It doesn't really matter what it is. I think to be passionate about something makes the process so much more enjoyable, makes the process of working hard and becoming better at something so much easier, because it doesn't feel like hard work. When you're there and somebody's pushing you and pushing you to do something and you don't really want to do it, I don't think it's likely that you're going to reach your full potential. And I think that this is often something that I think falls into the hands of not only the player, because the player has to be able to know their limits. They have to be able to balance between hard work and having fun. But I think it also falls into aspects of the hands of coaches and parents, because it's really their job also to be able to help the young players to understand why the sport is so enjoyable, why the sport is so exciting. I'm thankful in so many ways for Kay, actually, because in that process of us working together, I think when Kay first met Lonnie, I think she was maybe only 11 months old. So obviously she had not started tennis. But
Mm.
when she's around tennis and she sees, wow, this is so exciting. I'm here at a Grand Slam. I'm seeing all these people watching Kay or watching Dad play or watching Roger or Serena. And this is so cool. How can you not enjoy that? How can you not want to pick up the sport? I'm thankful for that. And and I think that if you give your child opportunities to enjoy the game, maybe one day, maybe you're out there working on some aspect of the game, but maybe you're out there the next day and making it fun for them in some creative way. You've got a child, for instance, and maybe they can't put the tennis racket on the ball yet. So be creative, blow up some balloons or something where
Right.
they can hit those balloons and have fun at it, and just to be able to understand and see that this is a sport that is fun. A lot of people enjoy it. It's a great way to meet people, make friends, and I think when people understand that and people embrace it, tennis, or no matter what they do, if you're passionate about something, it's easy to want to get good at it because you want to work at it. And so that would be one of the things that I would encourage young players. I would encourage parents and coaches. It's not always easy to do, granted, because you're always you want every day to be productive. But I will tell you, some days, the most productive days may not necessarily be in stroke production and maybe getting a shot down. But I'll tell you what, if that particular day helps your child to enjoy the sport more and to be more excited about going out there and playing the game, then that was a good day.
Mm-hmm. And just finally, to wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, what is a typical Michael Chang day? And once we disconnect from this, what would you be going to do?
Well, I almost kind of think everything changes a little bit.
Right.
Certainly, everything has changed now with the pandemic. It was actually a little bit different when the kids were online school versus going to school, and I'm sure it's going to change. A couple of months from now, maybe a month from now, if the U.S. Open ends up happening, because then I'll be back on the road with helping Kay out.
Yeah.
So my day is not really. I don't have a set day.
Not typical.
Yeah, typical day. Obviously, a lot of it is really surrounding, family. Family is huge for me. Going out there and really enjoying, Amber and the kids, different activities now that they're involved with. Like I said, we're involved in a lot of sports. We're active. We're out and about. The kids are out biking. Just watching them grow, watching them mature, watching them learn things is really, really a joy. For Amber and I, when I'm not certainly scouting matches for Kay and helping him to be home and to watch them grow and develop is really a joy for me. And it's obviously a full-time job to be here all the time, to be a father and a husband, but that's really something that I pride myself on, and and that's one of the reasons why we always try to keep the family together as much as we can, because at this time where the kids are learning so much, I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to miss anything. So the days are busy. The days are busy. The days are packed. Amber and I are super tired by the end of the day. But I tell you what, we go to bed at night with a smile on our face, just feeling like God has blessed us in so many more ways than we could ever imagine, and certainly to be a father to Lonnie, Miley, and Micah has been more than I could ever imagine, and just appreciating it, absorbing it, and just enjoying the time.
Michael, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's so nice to see you again. We're looking forward to seeing you and Kay back on the road, and hopefully all the stuff that's happening now, we see the back end of that very, very soon. And good luck to you, the family, and looking forward to seeing you in person very soon at a tournament.
Sounds good. Thanks, Craig. You take good
Thanks,
care.
Michael. You take care, you.